but it also taught me how essential power is in our day-to-day life and how it impacts livelihood. It's less about being the first woman in the room, but it's more about shaping the culture so that I'm not the last woman who has a seat at the table.
Welcome to Padayon, a Cebu Business Month podcast, where we invite and celebrate the brightest minds in the country. I am your host, April Ongvanyo. Before we dive in, make sure to follow us, Padayon Podcast, on our socials. That's on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. In this episode of Padayon Podcast, we will have a conversation with one of the country's leading energy companies, AboitizPower. We have with us today a woman leader and a fellow sustainability advocate. She is the Regional Chief Operating Officer for the Visayas of the AboitizPower Transition Business Group. Welcome, Rhea Navarro. Hi, Rhea.
Hi,
Welcome.
April.
Thanks for joining us for
Thank
this
you
podcast.
for having me.
So, let's dive right into it, right? So, we talk about AboitizPower being in the lead. You have overseen power plants. You've led complexity, helping light up entire cities. But start off, what powers you, Rhea?
Purpose and meaning.
Wow.
When I think about my job and what my organization does, how it powers the economy and how it uplifts the lives of people, it really fills me with, immense pride and a sense of purpose.
That's great. I think that really encourages you and motivates you with the line of work you are in, right? But maybe going back in time, can you tell us, where you grew up, how those early years were like? Who was Rhea?
Well, I was born and raised in Cebu. Our life was simple. Growing up in Punta Princesa, I grew up in a community with our extended family, so surrounded by family. The neighborhood kids that I grew up with were actually my cousins. Um, I also remember, so age reveal. I remember when I was a child, living through Typhoon Rufing. So Typhoon Rufing was, I guess, the last typhoon that was around the same type as Typhoon Odette. And we had long extended blackouts. So I really experienced what that was like. And in those instances, while it taught me how to plan, so do my homeworks in the evenings, not in the evenings, before the evening came. But it also taught me how essential power is in our day-to-day life and how it impacts livelihood.
Yeah, I think coming from the region or this part of the country, it feels like everyone shares that experience, unfortunately. But yes, it really resonates to all of us, the importance of power every day. It sounds like you really grew up like with resilience or really forming that kind of resilience. I'm curious, back then, maybe when you first earned your first peso, hard earned, money growing up, or I don't know how young, what did you purchase with that money that you earned?
It probably wasn't an item. I think it was contribution to my younger siblings' tuition. My parents have always worked so hard to to provide everything that we needed to put us through school. And I'm sure it wasn't easy for them to send four kids to school. And at one point, there were three of us in college at the same time. So I'm sure it wasn't easy. So I really wanted to just give back.
How it sounds like family is so important to you, and you value family so much. What influences have shaped your core values, your discipline?
Of course, one of the biggest influences are my parents. So, growing up, they really taught us the value of independence, grit, and ambition. They were both working, so there was a lot of time where we were left to ourselves. But they've always raised us to believe that you can do anything as long as you work really hard to achieve it, and that includes grit, making sure that you do what it takes to get through the hurdles, and also, of course, own the outcome of that.
Wow, it seems like you grew up or at least you were raised to become a leader. Did you ever imagine yourself to be, a leader, especially now in the energy sector?
Maybe at some point leadership, yes, because in school, when
Active.
there's very active with a lot of the tasks to do. But I also find that I'm more of a bigger picture person than a deep technical expert. And I really love working with people, whether that's being a team leader or as a team member. Um, so really, I imagined myself as that.
Okay. I mean, yes, it seems like leadership has become more and more innate, and you're showing that, right, in your role now. But your background is in environmental studies. You had your master's in environmental science. Has that how did that prepare you to enter energy? Was it always energy? Like, I mean, environmental science, I guess, is a very broad field. Like, you know, what power drew you into the energy sector?
Well, I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering, and that's actually my first introduction to energy because as normal, these companies come in and, I guess do recruitments, right, and encourage people to apply. Um, so after I did my bachelor's, I also decided that I wanted to do environmental studies, so I pursued my master's in environmental science, which was, in itself, apart from the degree, was a learning experience. Um, but after I graduated, my first job actually introduced me to energy. So, it I guess it came naturally that I wanted to stay in energy because in my first job I actually um, I could actually see that this is my place and it's essential for nation building. This is where I can contribute.
It seems like you felt like you really belonged in that sector. But I'm sure it didn't really come in like just an easy path for you. Maybe you can share also some of the challenges you faced throughout your career.
So coming into energy, I guess um, I was one of the few women who were in the industry at that time when I started out. I'm glad that's not the case today. Um, so it was definitely challenging um, being one of the few because there are also actually unintended biases that you encounter, which, pose as a challenge. They're not necessarily hurdles, but it's something that really shapes you. So I felt like, as you go along, you learn how to how to deal with these challenges in a male dominated environment, learning how to be heard, learning how to get things done, and also showing, teaching the industry that um, we have a lot to bring and that we deserve a seat at the table.
I mean, that's, very inspiring. I mean, as a young woman professional myself, it's always, empowering to see empowered women and you showing, you know, others, in your team or even outside, myself included, that, as a woman leader, it doesn't matter if it is a male dominated industry, you can definitely thrive and shine. Actually, I heard that there's also a first about you. You are the first female COO in like the thermal energy group. Is that true?
That's right. That's
Congratulations. But talking about that, there's really, that conversation or narrative around firsts for women in leadership roles. Like, what's your take on that narrative?
Um, I think there's still ground to cover on gender representation in the energy sector. But I think uh, I choose to focus on how leadership is evolving. It is evolving. It's less about being the first woman in the room, but it's more about shaping the culture so that I'm not the last woman who has a seat at the table and opening the doors wider for other women to come in.
That's amazing. And, with that, you're opening the doors to more women. But were there people, I guess, whether they were women too, or even just even the men, the male, let's say, mentors, that you have gained that support and mentorship?
So I want to also make sure that I give credit where credit is due. I've been mentored by both men and women. So I did have a lot of men mentors who really taught me um in my formative years as a professional, really good basics that I still practice today. But I also want to say that, the women who came earlier before me, they also held the door for me, which is inspiring for me because then that also makes me feel that, my role really here is to continue to evolve how leadership is in the business, right, in the industry, and to open doors wider for other women to come in.
Yeah, I want to expand that, right? Because you shared earlier that purpose drives you, right? And it seems like as a leader, right? You are a purpose driven leader. You talked about being a woman leader, but in your line of work, right? What does that mean? In the energy sector, what does purpose driven leadership mean?
For me, purpose driven leadership means really being attuned to uh, what is the need or what your current reality is and what the society, what community needs, right? Your customers, what do they need? And really recognizing what's important. So being able to define what your purpose are and being able to prioritize what you need to do in the 1 million things that you need to do, be able to really identify the things that are important and bring that back to what really delivers the value and delivers and fulfills the purpose that you've set out in the beginning, right? And making sure that your team is clear and that they see that as well. So not just the vision in your head, but you are able to translate it into a direction, a clarity of direction for your team.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, of course, takes teamwork to make the dream work, right? But how challenging is it to juggle, right? These factors of energy security, affordability, and sustainability.
It's not easy, let me just say. It's like solving a puzzle piece where the pieces don't fit quite right. Communities need power, of course, that's stable and affordable and sustainable. So you can't choose just one. It's challenging because um, there's always going to be something that doesn't fit quite right, but that's really where the real work happens. That's why we focus on the current reality of the country of Cebu, and we focus and so that we have a transition that's responsible and not rushed.
Of course, for Cebu in particular in Visayas, with the challenges that we face, what kind of solutions, right? What kind of innovations do you think or are you considering or are being considered now um, to really meet, right, the growing demand?
First, we want to be able to make sure that the grid, especially in the Visayas, right, that we have a reliable base load. So we operate power plants and we ensure that we operate them reliably so that we always have security of supply of energy. But also we're looking to the future, right? With AI, digitalization, we want to make sure that we introduce these concepts to make the technologies that we use in our power plants smarter, because in this way, we can be more efficient in the way that we operate.
And makes your end consumer afford, right, efficient and reliable energy. Can you share examples of innovations for the energy sector that AboitizPower is doing right now?
We're building the Philippines' first smart power plant through our project called Project Arkanghel. We're using AI and digitalization to ensure that our power plants are utilizing and leveraging on these technologies to operate more efficiently. And I'm very proud that our plant Therma Visayas Inc. or TVI is actually will be one of the smart power plants in the Philippines.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you talk about your impact, the reality that the communities live in, where you serve. I mean, can you share some examples, right, on how AboitizPower, make an impact, right? And I'm sure, that's part of that responsibility. How is that exemplified?
So beyond the power that we deliver to the grid, right? we're also in the barangay. So we lead coastal cleanups. We have scholars. We send students to school. We hold medical missions. In Toledo, we have served hundreds of residents through health programs. It's not simple. It's not simply about power, but about being a good neighbor. And I think I mentioned in our earlier conversation that um, the work that the business generates as well is an opportunity for people, and the projects that we do is also an opportunity for the local communities and local businesses actually to to thrive as well.
Yeah, it's like that microeconomy that you are creating as well. When you have, you build a plant, or, you serve the underserved. And, I guess it's so complex that it's also quite difficult for people to understand, like the industry as a whole. Um, what kind of perspectives from your side, right, from the energy sector, would you like more people to understand better?
Thanks for that question. Actually, I'm waiting for the opportunity to talk about that. So we have this thing called the energy trilemma. It's a trilemma because it's referring to the puzzle pieces that I talked about earlier, where you balance sustainability, security of supply or reliability of energy, and affordability. Um, there should be enough power in the first place to allow, of course, economic development to continue, right? Um, and really improve the quality of life of the community. But also, I think one of the things that need to be talked about apart from that is it needs to be affordable, because the community that we serve isn't just businesses actually who need energy, but it's actually the everyday Cebuano who should be able to afford. Because when we talk about progress, when we talk about development, we shouldn't be leaving anyone behind.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with that. And, energy poverty, you know, actually trickles down to everything else, right? So definitely it hits at the core, and we need to move forward to address that in a sustainable manner. And we talked about, the impact you have in the community, right? And I know AboitizPower, or Aboitiz Group as a whole, right, actively invests in community development. And why do you think this is important? I mean, I shared with you that, like I have a development sector background as well. And, I definitely praise the work of companies that are mindful and also intentional. But, just to share with those who are like listening or watching this, why is it crucial that businesses really care for their communities and make things happen together?
We invest in our relationship with the community because the community is really integral to the way that we operate. They're actually our partners. So when we talk about with advancing business, it's also advancing communities, especially where we operate. That goes hand in hand when we look at the vision for the future. And it really just makes for good business, right? To be a good neighbor and to make sure that the community where you operate your business actually really thrives.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about vision, right? I'm curious, what is your vision for Cebu's energy, right? Like the future of energy in Cebu, maybe wearing your hat, of course, in Avoid This Power, or even personally, because I do feel that it's something also quite personal for you to push for this, this to happen.
Yes. Well, being a Cebuano, it's very personal for me. So maybe let me um give a background on Central Visayas and how fast the growth is of Central Visayas. No, it's the fastest growing region in the Philippines, right? You would know that. Um, and Cebu Island contributing to more than half of that. So you can think of Cebu as really the demand center for energy as well. So along with uh, economic development, all of these economic activities that are happening, the demand of energy is also growing. So it's really important to think about energy, especially in this time. And my vision for Cebu is to have power that's secure, or reliable, power that's sustainable, and affordable. So like I said, energy is so important to the economy. I think it's the backbone of the economy, in fact. And at the pace that, Central Visayas is growing, it is important that there's reliable supply just to make sure that development happens and, the economy flourishes. Affordability is so important. And like I said earlier, when we talk about progress and we talk about development, affordability is important because the everyday person should be able to afford energy, and it should be development where that doesn't leave anyone behind.
I mean, I think, that really pushes that just energy transition, right? And, in terms of how, you're making it affordable is already key, right? To making sure that, yeah, we have every household, every Filipino access reliable and secure and affordable energy. So, Rhea, what do you consider as your greatest legacy in your professional career, but also in your personal life?
Well, apart from the apparent impact of power to economic development, which we talked so much about, it's developing and training people, Filipinos, Cebuanos, through the jobs that we offer and really providing them a stage for professional development, whether that's in leadership or as technical experts. This is a legacy that I would like to leave, so that we ensure that we continue to have leaders and professionals that will continue to lead the industry purposefully.
I mean, we talked about earlier, you being a purpose driven leader and, the impact you're making in the energy sector as a woman leader too, but nonetheless, really in providing affordable, secure energy for all Filipinos. And that's definitely something that's already the broad impact you're making. But I really like the sound of what you're, saying, how it's very personal to changing the lives of the people in your team and in the company that brings that energy to life through your company. But yeah, maybe also your personal life, perhaps you can also share.
Personal legacy, it's very simple, really. Personally, I would like to become a daughter that my parents are proud of, a sibling that my siblings are proud of, and a tita that my niece and nephew would really look up to. And really, that's just me.
What would be your piece of advice to aspiring change makers or young leaders, especially those who want to enter in the energy sector?
Um, well, for future leaders, first, I would say, be grounded on your purpose. Be grounded on your purpose and your values, because that will really shape how you make decisions. Second is be curious, right? What's out there and how, there's more than one way to solve a problem. Um, and the last thing would probably be challenge the status quo, because sometimes, the boundaries or the lines are perceived, but maybe, there's something else out there that could really be game changing to what you want, to the value that, you want to offer.
Thank you for that. I'm sure some of those who are listening, hopefully the younger generation, will follow suit to that advice. It's been really great getting to know you, and the work that you're doing. But maybe this one is going to be just a fun way to wrap up the episode. So are you ready? Pwede ra?
Ready as I'll ever
Pwede
be,
ano?
April.
Pwede daw ta magbisaya kay
Okay.
padayon ta, di ba? So fire questions, okay? So, Rhea, what is something people might be surprised to learn about you?
I'm a very simple person. I like to doom scroll in my free time.
Oh, me too. Okay, that's the fire. I won't ask you what you do scroll in. What do you do to de-stress?
On the theme of doom scrolling, I like to send beams to my friends. But it's really nothing really serious. I just really want to unwind and not to be too serious in my after a long day.
Of course, your work is very serious work, so it's good to de-stress and have fun. But if not energy, where would you be instead?
I would have been in the arts, I really wanted to be a writer. Not necessarily journalism, but more creative writing. I did some poetry also when I was younger. Um, and I always think about myself that when I eventually retire, I might do volunteer work for a museum, um, something around the arts because I just love art.
I love art too. And I think that one is the answer also to the first question, because very surprising, our um, energy lady is also an artist. But maybe also to that, what was your favorite subject back in school?
Okay, it was chemistry.
Okay. As I was
Science.
thinking it was going to be literature, but yes, really
Yes.
science.
But it's also connected to art in a way that, understanding the science behind making wine, appreciating wine is, I believe bridges the science and art.
Arts et scientia. I know that's not Bisaya, that's Latin, I think. So I think this is the last one for this fire questions. If you could only eat one dish or the same dish every day, what would you pick? Filipino or Bisaya dish?
Okay. Then I would say lechon with puso or maybe ngoyong.
Well, top three, when in Cebu. So anyone here watching and listening here in Cebu, make sure you eat lechon, puso, and
And
some
ngoyong.
ngoyong. Wow, wonderful. That makes me excited and hungry now. Thank you, Rhea.
Thank you, April.
Thank you for your energy to this episode, and of course for sharing your insights, your story, and of course inspiring me and hopefully also those who are listening and tuning in. Thank you again, and to everyone, thank you so much also for tuning in. This was our Padayon Podcast, a Cebu Business Month podcast episode with Rhea Navarro. This has been April Angbanyo saying goodbye and Padayon Cebu. Hi, thank you.